Hello, everybody, and welcome to the EOSHL podcast episode number 17. With me is the goaltender of the Frontenac Phantoms and current leader with the most saves in the league currently in this season right now is Dryden Bedard. Welcome, Dryden.
Thank you, Justin. It's awesome to be here finally. Obviously, we've talked about this for a little while, trying to get me on, and yeah, I'm really glad to be here. And just really quick, I want to shout out obviously yourself, James and Billy Bull, and all the other staff behind the scenes doing everything we can for the EOSHL, just in terms of taking care of us online on the website and on social media. You guys do an amazing job, and I know all the fans and the players obviously really appreciate it.
Yes, very, very valuable, and Billy's voice is legendary in its very own its only very own way. James is just phenomenal with the camera. They're doing just a stand-up job doing everything that they can with their broadcasts, and it's only getting better. So Dryden, let's start off here. Who's Dryden Bedard, and where are you from, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm 25 years old. I was born in Belleville, Ontario, at Belleville General Hospital around 4:27 in the morning. I think just missed 4:29 by a little bit. And yeah, so I grew up here in Carring Place, Ontario. This is where I currently reside. So it's just inside Prince Edward County, and I spent a lot of time here growing up playing on the pavement, road hockey, and then we have a bay, like a Weller's Bay, right out in front near my house, where we would just go out in the wintertime, of course, and that's where the love for hockey really started.
And what's really great too is your name. Like you have a legendary name. Tell us like how I guess you say like how your parents came up with your name because I love the story.
So it is my dad. My dad was a huge Ken Dryden fan. Of course, Ken Dryden played for the Montreal Canadiens in the 1970s. Obviously, great era for the Canadiens in terms of winning lots of cups. So when I was about to be born, my dad for a long time had already preset in his brain that his first son would be named Dryden. So it was very hard for my mother to convince him otherwise what my name would be. And so he stuck to his guns, and of course that was the name that was given to me. And so obviously it's a great name to carry. It's it's really cool to say the least.
You've also lived up to that legacy, right? Like in terms of like, hey, you're born with that awesome name. You're a goaltender. Like what that to me that's just like the ultimate goaltender name.
In the
Now playing in net, like, so when for you, learning, like when you first started going in net, you mentioned playing like ball hockey and in the driveway and so on. Was so did you start playing in like the driveway and then go on the ice, or like how did that all start for you? Like how did the love of the game come to you?
For sure. So the hockey journey is quite interesting. So apparently, like I didn't know this till I was a little bit older, of course. But my parents had put me on skates when I was a baby. I guess I didn't take to it too well, and I didn't really want to be on the ice. But I was only a few months old, so like I have no recollection of that memory. But from there, I started playing hockey full time as a forward at around 7, 8 years old, and obviously just in house league. So at one, as you know, in house league, everyone gets a chance to play goal. So obviously, I did a pretty good job going in the net, and I really enjoyed it. But I really wanted to score, so like that was a big thing for me. My first year playing hockey was trying to score a goal. It didn't even come till actually my birthday. I played on my birthday, and I scored a couple. So I remember that memory very hard. And later that season, I got the chance to play again, and I remember got a shutout. And then we have like obviously the league championship in house league, so Super Sunday. And so I guess the team kind of rallied behind me being the guy to go in the net, and of course we won. So that was really the kickstart of being a goalie full time. And I remember that game pretty well because it was a really cool feeling being the guy in the net, being able to make all the big saves, and obviously lead the team to a big victory. So from there, that's where I think the love of goaltending really took off.
How were your nerves like in terms of like I know for myself, like I remember my very first time in goal. Mind you, I was 30 years old, but facing a puck for the first time, like how were your nerves? Where you're like how
Is
am
it
I going to take
obviously?
this? Or like we're
I feel like a lot of guys that take up this position, like it feels very natural to be back there and just trying to be a wall that can't be broken. Like it's just a very natural feeling for a lot of guys that take up this position. So it just kind of came to me instinctively and naturally. Obviously, I didn't have great technique or strong skating ability then, but I just really loved trying to stop the puck.
yeah, and you know, for me, like I can definitely relate to what you're saying. Like you starting off in the driveway and then, you know, working your way up to the ice. Like that was always the dream for me. And, you know, I love hearing your story and hearing you talk about how you fell in love with that position because I've watched you grow over the last couple seasons. I've seen just how much work you put into things. And I just admire that about you. Now
Thank you.
Tell me about a team that you really enjoyed playing for when you were in your minor hockey days.
So I obviously got the chance just to briefly just go over it. Was so from 9 to 12, I played goalie full time in house league. Obviously, I had a lot of success, and the organization, so Queen West Minor Hockey, wanted me to move forward into rep hockey, and I don't think it was anything to do with other than they wanted me to excel at what I was doing. So obviously, some not to go into too many details, there was some political things that held me back a couple of years with regards to tryouts, but that's like anything, right? It's life. And so from there, I finally got the opportunity to play on a couple teams. And then you progress forward to my grade 11 year. So I would have been 16. I got the opportunity to play with a mixed group, right? So I'm a 99. So we were mixed with the 98s. So that was the 15-16 season, Quinny West Hawks A group. And there's only 5 99s, including myself, including my goalie partner, who's also a 99. Everyone else was a 98. I think we had 21 skaters. So uh, we played that season, and in our regular season, in just our loop, we were 22-0-2. We were fifth in Ontario that year. We went 41-8-6. We lost in the All Ontario Finals in Game 6 to the Amherstburg Stars, which is an organization closer to Windsor. They had a really great goalie. I'll never forget those goalie battles. His name was Deshaun Stewart. I think he plays for Adrian College now, NCAA Division III. But yeah, that was a really great year, really great group of players, great group of guys. We still are all connected to this day in some fashion. It was one of those things, right? It's like everything fell into place at the right time. So a couple organizations had folded. So Belleville had folded their 98 group and 99 group, and Sterling had folded. So that brought both those centers right to us. So in terms of the talent level, like there was a lot of great players on that team, and it was it was a lot of fun and just great hockey all around.
Now, you mentioned to me that you had this. Now I know for me, if I go a month without playing hockey, let alone a week, I go crazy. But you had this window in your playing career where you went from 2018 to 2023, where you stopped playing hockey. So what happened there? Was there like something that happened that caused you to kind of put the like pump the brakes or?
So there was a multitude of things. So we'll start with the big one, which was the physical aspect. So I played junior hockey, of course, in the local region for both Picton and Campbellford. So that season with Campbellford, we were not a very strong team. So being a goalie on that team was quite difficult for anyone who was in the cage. You're facing a lot of rubber. I remember there was a warm up in particular somewhere around December. We were playing the Amherst Jets, and I was warming up, just doing a very simple skating pattern. And I went to slide, and I felt something pull right away. And so I went to get up, and I completely ripped my groin. So as I was skating off, I knew instantly that that was probably like the end. And to make matters worse, I was walking to my car, and because I had so much leverage the one way, I went and stretched into my car, and I actually pulled slightly the other groin as well. So I severely pulled one groin, but I had slightly pulled the other. So like just in terms of walking for the next several months, it was very difficult. Like it took a while to rebuild the tissue in the hips and the inner hips, obviously on the groin, just to have like strong functionality. Obviously, as you can see now, like my flexibility's come back, and so is my mobility. So that took a long time to recover from, just in a natural sense, not even being on the ice sense. On top of that, after those things had happened, so I decided that year as well, after the injury, to take an academic scholarship at the University of Ottawa. So I obviously did 4 years. I studied criminology, graduated with Bachelor of Honors in social sciences. And afterwards, obviously, I returned home and just kind of took on a job at a winery for a little while, proceeded on to a law firm. Just as those things were taking place and getting hired on at the law firm, I had started playing men's league again, just to have fun, right? I had a couple friends that were building a men's league team, and they were looking for a goalie, and I thought, you know what, like I would like to get back on the ice and really just try and play from there. I played recreationally at university a little bit, but it was just kind of here there. So to jump in a little more full time again was really awesome. And that kind of progressed my hunger to come back in a more competitive sense, which obviously led to me going out to the Center Hastings Ice Miners tryouts, which I know we may discuss here, and just kind of brought me back into the competitive side of hockey as a goaltender.
Also, you also tried out for the Phantoms actually as well before you went out to Hastings. So I remember being on the ice for that as like the quote unquote referee.
Yes,
And
yeah.
I remember it was the first time I ever seen you on the ice too. So I remember
I've
like
seen the
I said,
black
like
and
I've seen
yellow.
you. I remember like I've seen you progress like just each and every time I've seen you play, and I know we've talked about this time and time again about like you know how much I've admired your work ethic and your positive your positive outlook on things. And I know like as a goalie, we're always the biggest critique of ourselves. And I know like when I hear you criticize yourself, I'm like, man, what are you talking about? So
It's
so now
obviously no, it's only
then
'cause I know what I'm capable of. But like we've had lots of great conversations. I know that. Like we've had really good conversations at the rink through everything goalie
even like
wise.
even when we were in even when in you were in Marmara, I remember like, we used to always have those like conversations about just goaltending and hockey in general. And I just remember I'm like, man, this guy's absolutely incredible. Like he's just great teammate, just great at what he does. And then, like you're a great ambassador of the position in goal and for our league.
Thank you.
Now let's talk a little bit about the Center Hastings situation and like, like your experience there. So like last season, I got to see you really fill in in a lot of different situations and like, what did you learn from that? Like, what did you take away from that?
100%. Just to start off, obviously, Marmara's a beautiful small town. My grandmother, my dad's mother, used to live there. So I spent a good portion of my childhood up there. So I was very familiar with that area and very familiar with the people in that town. So going there to play as a senior A team was something very surreal and um, nostalgic in a way for me, just to go back to my roots in a sense. And the opportunity to play with Ethan Coons, who I grew up playing a little bit and practicing with as a 98, a year ahead of me in Quinn West. And obviously meeting guys like George Derry, who are very local guys, deep roots in that area. Um, what did I learn? I learned that, like in competitive sports with managing a team, both financially, logistically, and player management wise, like it's a very difficult thing to do when everyone has different ideas being thrown at the table. And trying to find a way to have some fluidity within that as a team and as an organization takes a tremendous amount of effort, time, but also like consistency, right? Kind of like both ends. Like you need consistency within an organization to have it run fluidly. Um, so like I can't say enough great things about some of the guys I played with. Luigi Marcone, Max Smith,
Oh, yes,
George
Luigi.
Berry, Brad Bellich, who's now with Tweed, Ethan Coons and Dez. I think Austin Eastman's in Dez as well. Kevin Deming out in
Yep.
Gananoque.
Oh,
There was a
Deming,
lot of
he's the championship hero for Gananoque in the final, scoring the
great
winning goal.
players.
Like
Great
I'm
person.
amazed every time Deming plays. Like he's just on another planet when I watch him play.
Yeah, great person, great player. So I can't say enough great things about some of the people I met in that organization that I still get to see at the rink sometimes on a regular basis. So really, really cool. But yeah, no, I wish things turned out a bit differently. I think everyone on that team did, just because we knew we had something that not a lot of teams had, and we just couldn't make it click at the right times. And that happens. That's hockey. Sometimes it just happens that way, where the bounces don't go your way or things fall apart faster than you expect.
And one thing I will say, like I loved going there whenever I went there, and it, there was a lot of great people, like you said, George Derry.
Yeah.
It's called Lionheart and Tweed now, or now they call him Lionheart and Tweed. There was a lot of great people there, and again, going back to Kevin, Deming, he scored the winning goal for Hastings in their very first win in overtime against Frontenac against our buddy Jake.
I was there. I remember that. I was with Dean on the glass. We were watching that. That was good.
That's right. That's right. And
Um,
it's funny when you look at when you look retrospect, like where everybody is now, and like looking at how well they're doing, and it's again, I I agree with you. Like you guys had something really good there. Um, Now, no, we talk a lot about the goaltenders we see in this league. Like you know, are there I know you have a long list, and I'm excited to actually get into this with you a little bit here. There are a lot of great goalies in this league, and like you've had a chance to watch and play against a lot of these guys in the league. Like who for you, who is on that list?
so there's a few names. So I'll say a couple guys I haven't seen live, like for sure. But like I've heard things from other goalies and I've seen them on the YouTube channel that we have. So that's been a good way for me to source things and just kind of watch how they play. So starting off, obviously I have to go with my goalie partners, Dean Gouvreau and Graham Gemmell. Both absolutely phenomenal goaltenders. Dean is a positional animal. Like I know he's not very big like myself, but like he just attacks the game from a position standpoint so well. Like he's never off angle. He's always square the puck, and he does a great job at controlling rebounds. Like it's a crazy thing to see with a guy who maybe doesn't have as much athleticism as I do, but like just he dominates that way. And then Graham, I would say, is an underrated skater. The edge work that Graham has is phenomenal. Like I've seen it at practice, and when we work on little skating drills, I'm just like blown
He does
away.
this whole thing. He does this thing with his hands where he's like gets in the zone, right? And it's just always active.
Yeah,
And I've always loved that about Graham too. Is like he's always this high energy kind of guy
no,
that's
like,
in the net, right?
yeah,
Even
full
going back to
energy
his days in Des, I used to love watching him in goal.
for sure. No, yeah, and I played junior hockey against Graham a couple times. I think I was on the bench though, so I didn't play him head to head. But yeah, no, like
Now,
I've known Gemmy for quite a while in that sense. But obviously we've built a relationship now, having been able to play together in front.
now you also played against Gemi as well in the Realm Sports Championship, if I recall, in Kingston last year too.
I did.
I remember all of us were all like watching, right? Like I played in like the senior level there with Colton's group, and
Yeah,
we were like
we were
paying
all there.
attention to that because it was like,
That
all
was
right, our goalies are going head to head.
that was a great weekend. And yeah, Graham definitely like outshined me in that game. He made some absolutely stellar saves to hold his team in there because we had some really good opportunities, but he shut the door. And of course, they got a couple by me that obviously cost us the game, but that was a really great tournament. And it was really cool for me to see both Dean and Graham because Dean was in the other division as well. But it was cool for all three of us to really be there and spend some time together. And then obviously see you and the other group as well in the different division. That was really cool.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Oh, it was definitely a fun weekend, and a lot of interesting things happened that weekend. That's for sure. We had
100%.
some in our division. We had a couple of games where there was a couple brawls happening, and it was pretty funny actually. But it's just the nature of the game. Sometimes I wasn't
Of course.
involved in it, of course.
No, of
I'm
course.
I'm
Yeah,
more like I'm like opposite of Ron
yeah.
Hextall.
No, we're just hanging out. I'm not like Ron Hextall either. I'm a very laid back kind of goaltender. I don't like to get in the scrums at all. I'm not the kind of physical guy like that. And just in that sense, there's no need for it from my standpoint as a goaltender.
No,
It's a waste of your energy.
no,
But each their own. Each their
exactly. You got to try and conserve it as much as possible.
own. Of course.
Who else do we have? Who else do we have on the Dryden list?
So some other big names. Shout out Matt Jenkins, North Dundas Rockets. Also a goalie coach as well. I haven't known Jenks too long, but obviously we've had some now personal rapport going back and forth, whether it was building gear or just talking hockey a little bit. And yeah, he's a phenomenal goaltender. Obviously a bit bigger than your average goaltender. I think he's 6'3", if I'm not mistaken. Um,
Some goalies, when you hear their heights, it's like, wow, really?
Yeah,
because like when you look at them in net, it's like, and then when you finally like see them on the ice, like wow, they are really actually really big.
yeah,
And I agree with what you're saying. Like thing I admire most about Jenks is how calm he is in that
yeah.
net. He'll have a goal against him. I remember this in the finals. He would get a goal against, and it would be like nothing even happened. Like he shows no negative emotions in that crease, and I just admire that about Jenks and how smooth he is in that net.
Yeah, phenomenal goalie confidence, great technical skill. Like as a coach, he's definitely like honed that very well. And he's also just once again very strong positionally, which is like like I'm a huge admirer of people who have strong positioning, just because obviously it's a huge aspect of what we do, just in terms of the mathematics of the net. So he does a great job just having great box control and coverage across the entire net. And yeah, that finals also brings me to my other goalie that I really admire watching, which would be Jake Clement, if you will, the king of the EOSHL. I've built a good rapport with Jake and Dean, obviously going through goalie coaching together, and we've had some really great conversations. Watching Jake up close is, such a phenomenal thing. And I've mentioned this to you before, where I think he, in my respects, is probably the best goaltender at reading the play. Like he is so far ahead that he just knows where the puck's going to end up. And that's definitely, it just shows in how dominant he's been in the last couple of years, especially when he got onto Gannon and was able to lead them all the way to the championship. Um,
Oh, like I can tell you the first time I met Jake, he was coming out to playing shinny, and it was his first time coming out playing hockey in like I think 4 years. And then within about 2 weeks, he was at Phantoms practice, like Phantoms tryouts, and of course he cracked the roster because why wouldn't he?
right.
And like he looked like he hadn't skipped a beat. Like he's just he's fun to watch. He's a very athletic goalie,
Yep.
and I think like I honestly I know last year I think was a big eye opener for a lot of people around the league after he got traded to Ganakwe because he ended up going I think it was 11-0 or 12-0. He hasn't lost a game in about 11 or 12 games, so he's on a different level, and
And like you said,
I've loved watching Jake play every single time he's on the ice.
he's got great athleticism, but I think what makes that so great is Jake doesn't rely on that, right? Like Jake's foundation of technique and just sound skating is really what he relies on. But that athleticism, when it kicks in, right, like that's when like he can do almost anything he wants in that net based on his overall capabilities. And then just some honorable mentions that I got to shout out because I saw them play. I haven't seen him play live, but Aiden Foley, I watched him obviously on the live stream and on the YouTube channel. Looks like an absolute animal in the net. Just very sound, great rebound control, great technique as well. And then obviously, big one for me was Bailey Miracle. So Brett Miracle's brother on our team, also Brody Miracle's brother of Deserano. Obviously, Bailey can't play this year due to some physical factors, but yeah, phenomenal goalie, great person on and off the ice. Yeah, like if you look statistically, like he did a really great job last year for Deserano. He
Oh,
held them right up at the top all the way through to the point where he had to obviously step back due to injury. And I think he took the league by storm last year, and he scared a lot of people, a lot of teams because of his ability to just steal a game and just take over. And that's a rare capability to have that clutch team where you can just walk into a game, take over, and just shut it down. He did such a great job of that last year, and I really hope that he gets healthy and has the opportunity to come back and play competitive hockey again because I'm sure that's something he would love to do.
if I recall, you went head to head against him in Marmora, actually in Marmora, I believe.
In Deserano, in Deserano, it was in Deserano that year.
Did you come in relief at all for a game in Marmara at all against Des? I
I
know at one point he
did.
played a game in Marmara.
I did. You are correct. I think that if I recall, I think that was the second period I went in, so I played half the game. But
Yeah,
he and I did get the opportunity to go head to head. Obviously, I got smashed, but like that was a really good
your
game.
first start.
That was my first start, and we were short bodies. No excuses. But it was one of those games where the weather was awful, so we were short bodies, and we couldn't keep up with that team because they are a great team depth wise. They have so many great players. Even this year, if they had great depth last year, they have greater depth this year, of course, just based on how they execute in terms of acquiring players, especially really great ones. And they have a great structure from Brandon Tucker and Landon Puncher just executing. So fun team to play against for sure, and just a great organization as well.
And I recall people saying you stood on your head in that game. Like I heard people say you made some spectacular saves in that game.
Yeah, it's tough when you know there's a couple you definitely could have had. But once again, I just try to battle it out in there, especially when you're facing high volume. I think that's all you really can do as a goaltender is just keep battling away and never concede and just do what you can, right? Because they're going to get by you, but just don't give up.
Now, what would you say as a goalie is like your philosophy or your approach? Because I know everybody kind of has that different, I guess that different approach, right? Like everybody's different. What would you say yours is?
Fundamentally, keep it simple. Going back to what I kind of said about Comment, right? Like I used to be a goaltender that definitely relied on my athleticism heavily. So trying to keep it simple by not over relying on that and coming back to a more technical standpoint, and then maybe allowing my athleticism to come into play when necessary. So keeping it simple that way, right? Keeping the middle line of my body staying square to the puck, on angle, just simple stuff like that, controlling rebounds. And then another big one I really took on as I matured as a goaltender was indifference. So it's really key, I feel, as a goaltender to be indifferent to the play, whether you're winning, whether you're losing, up, down, whether you get scored on, whether we score, right? Like staying very neutral is very beneficial in terms of the mindset, I feel, just in relation to staying in the moment. And that would be the last one, just enjoying the moment because, like this ride's going to end one day. So I really try to just enjoy every second on the ice as best I can because, I love being out there and I love the position of goaltending and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world to be out there on the ice and just playing the game I love.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your equipment. So, you have a couple sets of pads, and actually, I have some photos here that I could share with you in that equipment. And I know going back to the groin injury you were telling me about, this picture just makes me feel a whole bunch of pain.
It's just the splits. It is.
Just the splits.
It took me a while to get back to that point for sure. Being able to do that. Obviously, I can get a bit lower than that. I know we kind of like have a great shot of it somewhere else as well, but that is a really good photo, I guess, just for me to see how strong I've rebuilt my flexibility and mobility in a sense, especially internally in the hips. I don't really have to pull out the splits too much unless it's absolute desperation. Yeah, and that's a great shot. Like I remember when you took that shot and sent it over to me, I was like, wow, that's really
cool. I've only seen a couple goalies be able to do splits like that, so I thought that was kind of remarkable. Now that set of pads that you have,
yes,
it's the black, white, and those ones. They're absolutely stunning, and you got your logo on them too.
Yeah, so that's of course my business, goalie coaching, Crease Conquerors Institute, and shout out Matt Jenkins once again, who was a key piece in bringing this set together. And shout out to the CCM team; they did a great job of helping me with the design and kind of building the specs of the pads to really suit my needs as a goaltender and to what I was comfortable with. And yeah, we spent I want to say almost 2 weeks on the design just because there was little pieces, right? Like whether it was the silver you see, the pinstripes, those little details, they came with time, and we played around with different ideas, but we wanted to have more of a what's the right word? We didn't want it to be too loud, right? Like it wasn't supposed to be like a loud pad, and I think we did a really good job of keeping everything a little more subtle, but very nice and fine detail to the point where you got the execution on the artwork and the design of the pad. So we took on a bit of that retro approach and modernized it with my logo.
Your logo. I got to ask you, this is something and where did you get that inspiration from? It kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Marvel superhero kind of idea. It reminds me of that a little bit.
So this was something I played with for months. Like I drew everything by hand, and I kept trying to illustrate what would be a foundational logo for goaltending, and also really reach kids, right? Like just to have that sort of bond in terms of like like we want to be a great goalie. So like I was like superheroes, goaltending. How can I make those two things really blend together and give it a bit of just hockey theme? And so what I over the course of time, like I built a superhero figure, and then I just tried to layer in goaltending pieces. Obviously, pads might have been a bit bulky and made the logo too loud, so I kind of cut those out and just made it like thunder thighs, like just massive strong thighs. Because as a goalie, you need strong legs. So everything kind of pieced together as I kept building it. But the logo you see is just kind of you can't really see it there. Shift wrong way. You can kind of see that's how it kind of came together, right? Just by adding in the stick, adding in a blocker, the trapper, and then the helmet, and of course a net in the chest, just as like the superhero logo. So that's because that's where we're protecting.
That.
Yeah,
exactly. I love that. I absolutely love that. Now, like when you actually go to like design your equipment, are you? I know, like you're mentioning, not to be too flashy in some cases, but like how much? I know, like this is probably a silly question, but like how much does like the comfort play into when you're selecting a brand of pad?
for me, like that's probably the biggest thing, and I really try to talk about that with kids, right? Like it's not so much about what the gear looks like how cool it is, right? Like sure, like but everything's cool now, so it's like I don't feel like that matters. To me, what matters is are you comfortable in the gear, and can you play the game you want to play the way you want to play the game comfortably for a long period of time, right? Because if you're not comfortable and you can't make the moves you need to make as a goaltender, maybe then it's not right. And that for me was always sticking with CCM, which was built by Lefebvre for a very long time. And that's also why I acquired more True Gear, was just because I really loved the way they built the gear. Spec wise, it just really suited and tailored to my body really well. Just in terms of how I wanted to play and how I felt comfortable in the net. A really good analogy came from Brad Belich, shout out Brad, who spoke about how it's like a sweater, right? Like when you put on a sweater, you want it to be comfortable and feel like there's nothing on you. That's how you want your gear to feel. So I wear a lot of CCM gear in terms of my chest protector, pants are CCM. My skates are True. I think that's the other really the two key pieces for me for any goaltender should be what's most comfortable, and protection wise is probably your skates should be the most comfortable thing, because that's the most important piece of equipment in hockey in general. And your helmet, I think your helmet needs to be top of the line. If you're playing low level, maybe not, but your helmet is protecting your brain, which is obviously a major organ in your body, and that needs to be protected efficiently. So having the best mask you can have so that you don't get hurt, don't get concussions, don't have any head trauma or whiplash, that is an important aspect of equipment for me as a goaltender and as a coach. I really preach that.
The other thing too is what I love about like the position itself is you really actually get to express yourself in the best possible way, right? Like I mentioned, like, in some cases, you get to actually showcase your personality a little bit through your equipment. I'm going to show a picture here of your mask.
Yeah.
That is just a beautiful mask. And I got to say, in my honest opinion, I think that's probably the best looking one I've seen in the EOSHL. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because of the style of the mask based off of what you can see in the background, but I absolutely love it. You want to run that? You want to run that? The story behind that mask for me.
For sure. As you already know it, but I will share it again. And of course, that comes back to my idol as a kid growing up, and that was Carey Price. So Carey had a lot of great masks. Everyone saw how in that final year he played in 2021, he had that iconic biomechanic mask, half man, half machine. I think that really emulates to a lot of goaltenders, especially the modern position these days, right? Like you have to be a technical robot, but at the same time, you're still an athletic human that has to find that will and desire deep down to drive through and get the job done. So I thought that was such a beautiful piece of art to really encapsulate the idea of goaltending in the modern day. So obviously I really wanted to honor him that way. And it's funny, once I got that mask done, I've seen a lot of similar reiterations of that mask. whether it's on kids or adults, right? And so obviously, shout out Graham Gamble, who pointed out to Mask Wraps in Toronto, who were able to help me complete that and bring that to fruition. There is some really key aspects for me that I drive home, and that's in the bionic eye as my father and his Sterling Blues gear. He played with Rob Ray growing up. So that was really cool to have that put into the eye as a personal note, as well as my parents' names, Don and Shay, on the back of the mask. Just, of course, like without my parents and without them giving me the opportunity to play hockey, both financially and just from a time standpoint, putting all that time in, getting me to places to be able to play, I wouldn't be here sitting here today, being able to play in the EOSHL. So, yeah, very, very grateful. And, yeah, it's a really cool mask, and I'm really grateful I got to build it and put it together in honor of Gary.
I know you were mentioning to me about the in the eye, it's your dad
Yeah.
uh, playing net, and I thought that was really cool. That's a great way to honor your dad, and especially from like the root of your name and everything like that. It's that's a really cool root there.
Yeah, I'm really glad we got that photo in. It was a tight fit because obviously we had to really shrink down the image, but like the detail is phenomenal. So I'm really grateful.
Very sharp. So every single goalie, will tell you like they have like a mentor, somebody that they look to or like they want to emulate their game after. Who would you say was that person for you or is that person for you?
So we have to start with my dad. So my dad, of course, was a goaltender. He grew up playing in Sterling, Ontario, for the Sterling Blues, and he was, of course, my first goalie coach. So he taught me a lot of just the fundamental basics when it came to skating. So T-push shuffles, C-cuts, and then, of course, just how to get down into the butterfly, how to track a puck, and how to kind of read the play a little bit and some of the positioning, right? So angles, depth, and squareness, just understanding most of the fundamentals. So he would be my very first mentor and my first goalie coach. Then the following would have been Jim Park. Jim Park was a goalie coach that ran multiple clinics across North America. So he would come to Toronto every summer, and so I would spend a week or 2 weeks up in Toronto at his camp. Jim Park played in the AHL, known as the IHL then, but he was a professional goaltender. And great, like he was a huge drill sergeant, so it was very, very hard camps in terms of skating. But that is fundamentally where I got all my great edge work and ability to skate and endurance. And he taught me a lot about technique. He was also a big preacher of the butterfly. Even though he's more old school, he did a great job of modernizing his knowledge to implement the butterfly as it came in along through his coaching career. And from there, I think the next one that I would really love to touch on is this past summer, I got to spend some time with Tyson Teachman. And he is, of course, a goalie coach for the Kingston Frontenacs, former Belleville Senators goalie coach. And so I knew Tyson because I watched him play as a Belleville Bull in the OHL growing up. So to go from being able to watch someone as a kid on the ice to standing next to them and them instructing you in the net is a really surreal and nostalgic feeling. And obviously, we got to build a really great rapport and a bit of a friendship through the course of this summer, just with him coaching me and coaching alongside him with some kids as well to get some more time in and some more knowledge through mentorship. So there was a lot of great knowledge that Tyson instilled in me this past summer that really, really helped my game. And finally, I think the most important one that I think most importantly brought me back into the competitive side of the game right before I got to the EOSHL was Kevin Drews. Kevin's been brought up by Graham, and Kevin obviously homes in Kingston, Ontario. He runs Between the Pipes goaltending clinic, and he does a phenomenal job. Kev's an inspiration for many great young goaltenders. He's done amazing things for Kingston minor hockey in general across the Southern Ontario region. Kev played in the OHL for the Oshawa Generals and the Sioux Greyhounds. He went on to play at York University and played a bit in the AHL, I believe, the Toronto Marlies. Went to camps for the Leafs and the Bruins. His approach to the game is just so sound. Like he's just, I couldn't say enough great things about Kevin in the sense of how he approaches the game from a fundamental standpoint, from a skating standpoint, and just a character development standpoint, and teaching kids about positivity and just staying true to yourself and just giving your very best every moment you're on the ice. So he's definitely inspired a lot of great people in this game, and he's touched so many goaltenders and just Awesome human being.
Now, I know goaltending, it comes with having partners and like, backups and so on. For you, you know, I know we talked about Graham and Dean and so on, but like, how have they helped support you while you're in that net? And or I say, how do you guys support each other?
That's a it's a pretty interesting thing. Like that connection between the three of us is very unique. Like you can't get that all the time with your goalie partners, and sometimes that's a competitive thing, like where guys don't really align. But for us, like as soon as we all got together, and for Dean and I, we had built a rapport and friendship already through goal instructing at Kev's camp. So that kind of came naturally, and then Graham and I just kind of took off naturally too when I met him. So the three of us kind of just intertwined, and we all have a very similar approach to the game in terms of wanting to help the team win as best we can, no matter who's in the net. And then just supporting each other through, like positive reinforcement and just going over through positive feedback, right? Like talking about things that we did really well in the game and maybe going through some things more critically, but in a very in a very non-harsh sense. Like it's a very open dialogue between all three of us. So we're very comfortable with communicating through what we did wrong or maybe what we could improve, just so that we structurally are better for the next game or can improve on something within our own games that might enhance or make us better throughout the long term.
I've always noticed that too. Like you guys are always communicating with each other, whether it's, they're during a stoppage of some sort or, you know, during the intermission, you guys are always communicating with each other. And I think that's always great to have in a goaltending partner with a goaltending partner, especially like at this level of hockey too, right? Where, you know, a lot of guys are fighting for that net, right? But in this case, you guys are constantly supporting one another. I think that's absolutely a great attribute to have when you have goaltenders who are willing to all work together like that.
For sure. Like, and
Um,
I know Graham and Dean would say the same thing, right? Like, it doesn't matter which one of us is in the net. We're going to try to support that guy to get the job done and give him the best amount of feedback we can see in game and post game so that we all get better. Just for the team, right? Like, that's the most important part because we also want team success. So we know that starts with us being a good team unit within ourselves, the three of us, and then really emulating that through the team just so that it builds across to build team success.
Now I want to talk about something because I know I see this a lot. So there's always talk about the big problem in minor hockey is like goalies not getting properly developed. Just because there's no a lot of people don't really I say a lot of coaches don't understand how to properly develop their goaltenders or not don't have the skills to do so. You've come up with that solution with your Conquerors Institute for Young Goalies.
Oh, I know.
How did you go about starting that all up? Like I know, like you being a goaltender and being mentored by all these great people, and now like you have that opportunity to do that for this young generation of goalies. Like, how did that all start for you?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is right now in terms of our country, specifically Canada, and you could say North America, the States is doing a much better job in player and goalie development, but that's been one thing in North America we've kind of lacked in comparison to Europe with regard to just player development and goalie development. So it has over the last couple of years really taken off, which is really great to see, right? Just because more coaches means more opportunities for kids to get on the ice and actually get the coaching they need, which was like my main drive behind it, right? Like it wasn't to get in and just become the guy. It was just to be another outlet so that kids had an opportunity to get on the ice and get the knowledge they really deserved and needed to get better. So working with Kev specifically, like we had a lot of great discussions about how like there was a lot of great coaches in the area, but not everyone has enough time. So trying to really like get more time in for kids with really great people would really help for goalie development across the board in not just Ontario but in Canada altogether, right? So I think that is the big thing is getting the right people in place to help develop all the goaltenders we can because it takes a village, right? And I think that's why we all do it. We all want to help the next generation get better so that we as a country can have, once again, the establishment that we are the best goaltending in the world.
Yeah, and like there was a big thing on TSN not long ago about like what's happening to Canada's goaltenders, saying like the last generations of Canadian goaltenders is going to be gone when Fleury retires, right? So it's just it's the biggest kind of big question mark right now. I know we're
It's
talking NHL there, but Price is gone. You've got Fleury's gone is going to be shortly gone. So there's definitely um hopefully the future is going to be bright for Canadian goaltenders, and we got to thank you for looking to the future for these young kids.
for sure.
Um,
Like I'll just say, like I agree. I know it's thin, but like there's some guys that like I think will come about, and I think they'll do a really great job at representing our nation. There's a couple really young ones that are still in the OHL right now that I've seen and worked with a little bit, and I could see them taking on that role of representing our country long term. There are some guys that are maybe just in the minors that are getting their time in to get up to the pro level. So the window's coming. I think we're just in a bit of a lull, and I think Europe has done a great job of just taking over right now with respect to Russia and Sweden and Finland. Like they've got some really great development programs that have built great goaltenders. So I think we're right in that mix. Just give it a little bit of time, and we'll be right back there. Don't you worry.
we'll be right back. Now, how has your experience been so far in Frontenac? You currently are the league leader with the most saves in the EOSHL with 257 through 5 games. That's an average roughly about 52 saves per game. So how has your experience been? I know you said to me the other day that like, what was it you said? You said you said a diet of oh I forget what it was whatever you
Healthy
said. It
diet
was
of
it was
pucks.
good for
Yeah,
you.
a healthy diet of pucks. Like I'm
Healthy
someone who
diet of
really,
pucks.
I'm really someone who loves high volume. Like I think any goaltender does, right? Like you love to be able to do your job as much as you can. Now, is it a bit taxing at times, and is it a bit frustrating if you get scored on quite a lot? Sure, but like high volume is always great, right? Because you're getting those reps, you're getting the opportunity to do the things that you were built to do and have been trying to really execute on. So getting all those in-game reps has been really beneficial, I believe, this season for me personally. I know some guys can struggle with it, and maybe that's more of a mental thing sometimes. Maybe it is a physical thing sometimes. I really have loved the experience of being able to stand back there and stand behind our great team of guys and just hold the line as best I can. In terms of being in Frontenac, it's a great group of people. You know that. Like there's from the top down, from management all the way down to some of the people that are at the rink. Like they're amazing people. And like I'm very grateful that Colton DeStefano was able to bring me on this season and reached out to me just to touch base and see if I would like to come out and skate. And obviously everything built from there this past summer. And I think we've got a really, really great group of guys in terms of some really interesting pieces that will really hold the fruition of the future for Frontenac. And I think we're building in the right direction for sure. Like there's a lot of steps we've taken over the last couple games that you can see that we're right there. Like we're pushing the limit and we're making the right plays at the right times. I think we're just getting caught in a couple of bad bounces and maybe just a couple of mistakes that like in any game that cost you, right? So just moving forward with the right mentality and the right approach, which we have in that dressing room, I think will really build towards the second half of this season and giving us a chance to really push for the playoffs.
And the other thing too, I want to mention your debut this season was in like I know it was exhibition, but against Deserano through 40 minutes, I think you probably had close to 40 to 50 shots and not a single one beat you. I remember um our league president Josh Rollins was there, and he was applauding every save you were making because I think I think you made Josh Rowland a Dryden Bedard fan based off of how he's seen you play. So
And hey, shout out to
um,
Josh.
you
He's
know,
done a great job with the league this year and taking it over. We've spoken personally a little bit. He's a really great guy, and I think everyone in the league really appreciates what he's done for this league so far this season and taking it on in the aspect he had. Like it was a very short time frame, and he had to turn around and just get going right away. So yeah, shout out Josh and the USHL team for just doing a phenomenal job of getting the season underway and just executing all the really cool stuff that we have upcoming and that has happened with TSN and all the other wonderful league things we have going on.
Now, I have two more questions for you.
Mm.
So, first one here is, who would you identify as the toughest shooter you've faced so far?
Oh, uh, oh, that's a hard question. So I'll say this: I haven't faced Kevin Domingue in practice though. He has my number. Like he was one of those guys like I could never get a full read on, and Kev is an elite hockey player with elite mind. So um, he definitely made me recognize how much I have to go to get to his kind of level in terms of just getting on top of his shot. Another one for me, because they know me personally and have played against me a lot, would be either Ethan Coons of Deserano or Jordan Cannons of Deserano. So I played with Ethan growing up, so he's seen me kind of evolve as a goaltender and knows which spots to choose. And Jordan Cannons plays against me in men's league on Wednesday nights, so he's very familiar with how I play, and he's definitely a very smart player in terms of his release and hiding it on me, and that's hard to track when guys are a little more strong at disguising that release. Another
I
one
would
for me that
say I would
I really love playing against this past weekend, Kelly Summers. Phenomenal skater, phenomenal hockey player. I could not say enough great things about Kelly as a hockey player. He's just out of this world as a defenseman. Like, yeah, he really carries that
oh,
team and he drives it every weekend. He gives them a chance to win. Uh, he's the reason that power play is so deadly. Like he just walks the line and makes decisions, and he's always looking at the net. Like whenever I'm looking at him, he's staring right at me,
oh,
just making decisions whether he's passing it off to the bumper or to the wall, and he's just walking the line like he knows what's going on every time. And yeah, he makes things
the
happen.
thing too is he doesn't even have to blast the puck. He just puts it on net,
Yeah,
and
just
he's just a magician.
yeah, he just picks his spot. He's a phenomenal hockey player. So I'm very grateful to be on the ice with all those guys, and to be able to go against them head to head is a truly nostalgic experience for me as a goaltender to play high level hockey players like that and just have fun at a competitive level and try to stop their shots as best I can and just hold the team in the game.
Now, my last question for you here is it's a doozy because it's going to bring up a lot of debates. Who is Dryden Bedard's top three goalies of all time?
Uh, so number one's easy. That's Carey Price, for all the right reasons. Changed the game in terms of the modern style of goaltending. Absolute phenomenal human being. So his level of play just is out of this world. Like we can't compare Carey to any other goaltender really. Like I think the only one for me that would be in second place is Dominic Hasek. Obviously, Hasek changed the game in terms of how he approached it, but also how his name, the Dominator, dominated the game and just continuously turned out amazing numbers and was able to find ways to win games that he should not have won, especially on teams that maybe should not even been competitive, right? Especially that Buffalo Sabres, couple Buffalo
Oh,
Sabres years where he just
100%.
carried them. And
And the other thing too about Hasek was every move he made was a calculated risk.
yeah, yeah, like, but once again, high risk, high reward, right? But he had such a great approach in that sense of knowing how to mathematically get his body in the right positions to just make the save, or at least read the play ahead of time to know where it was going to be to get a piece of his body somewhere to make that save. And finally, like I know this one might be a bit controversial, but Ken Dryden, and I know that's also a bit biased because of my name and my father's idol. But look at the body of work, right? And what was it, 9 seasons? He had 6 cups. Is that right? Is that the right numbers?
Yeah, it
And he
sounds
took
about
a year
right.
off.
Yeah.
He took a year off, right? He came back and he won 3 more, I believe. So, like, that's hard to argue, right? Like, you play less than a decade and you take away 6 cups. Like, I think that in itself speaks of how great your goaltending was. Now, a lot of people will say the team in front of him was absolutely phenomenal and unbeatable to a sense before even getting to him, for sure. But obviously, he had to do his job every single night and stop all the pucks that came at him. So, yeah, I think he is definitely not underappreciated, but maybe underappreciated in the category of greatest of all time, just because of what he accomplished in such a short time span. Even his numbers are pretty phenomenal for a goaltender in the 70s. And I think the only thing I really love to see about Ken Dryden, if he stuck around, is how he would fare against Gretzky, just because like that would have been a really interesting scenario for a great team like Montreal to face a guy of that capacity that just was able to really dominate the game on an individual level. So yeah, those would be my top three.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Like I said, it's a very debatable topic, right? I know I probably have, to be honest with you, I can't disagree with what you're saying at all for your top three. I might have somebody else in my top three. He wears your number,
Yeah,
but
and
I
that's a
think you know
hero.
what
Yeah,
I'm talking
that's a
about.
hero.
Good old Saint Patrick.
That's
He'd
right.
be in there in mine somewhere. Well,
Doesn't,
Dryden,
yeah,
Well, Dryden, I appreciate you coming on today. It's been a pleasure, and wish you all the best of luck this season. All the best of all the health in the world for the season. Stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive, and continue being you, my friend.
yeah. Thank you, Justin. Thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure to finally be able to do this, and of course, yeah, thank you for just taking care of all of us at the USHL. You guys do a great job. Yeah, we can't thank you enough because obviously without you guys, this league wouldn't be what it is in terms of the visuals and just the overall capacity of exposure we get from you guys doing your job and just getting us out there on social media, onto YouTube, the league website, right? Like you guys take care of everything. So yeah, very grateful. Grateful to be in the USHL. Yeah, and thank you, Justin. This is awesome.
Mm, Thank you, and fans, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, and also we're also on Spotify. So be sure to follow us. All right, take care, fans. Thank you, Dryden.
Thank you, Justin.